Hi everyone. It's Margie with Basmati.
Hi,
Hello.
Margie.
Hi, Margie.
Hi. We're talking with Andrea from Awaken Astrology and Roger with Recover Your Heart and Ursula. We're doing our monthly open doors reading, and so let's get busy with it. Hey Ursula, how are you doing? How did you enjoy the solar eclipse?
Hi, Andrea. I'm good. The eclipse was definitely intense, as to be expected, but came with some revelation. So it was overall a positive experience, and I watched the eclipse from my yard. I had a really great view, so that was really fun.
Oh, wow. That's excellent. Good. Well, so I'm going to call this month for you energies supporting your emotional body, your evolution of consciousness, and creativity. Now, that's a mouthful, but that's essentially what we're going to be going into this month, and you can feel free to share. But I'm not going to be covering the faster-moving Mercury in retrograde, Mars, Venus. This is more about psychology, the psychology of you, the in-depth workings of your emotions and psyche. So I don't know if I'm going to be triggering anything or if it was already triggered by the eclipse. But
yeah, I think I'm ready.
Bring it on.
Okay. Yeah, bring it on. Okay. So the reason why I'm covering what I'm going to be covering is because not only on the day of the eclipse was your personal chart very much impacted, but that theme continues right into your own personal month, which starts on August 28th. So I have to cover this. I have to cover the emotional aspect. If you remember from our last conversation that I was talking about this water trine that you have, and I was bringing in the goddess Estrella, and as it turns out, all of that just got woken up. And the thing about eclipses is that the energies are not just about that day, but they're a major theme going right into the next 6 months. So we might as well start this month off with your raising your awareness and knowing what's going on with you.
All right,
so
sounds good.
Good. Okay, so this is you know how I look at it, all of these energies are a gift, okay? And the gift that is being given to you by the current activation is for you to be able to go deeper into your emotional nature and psyche. And that's in order to bring the unconscious aspects of yourself into conscious awareness. And so that's why I call this a real opportunity to advance your power of creation. So how do we create? And in order to answer that question, we have to talk about the moon. We know from history that for thousands of years, the moon was revered as the most powerful god, or in this case, goddess. She was depicted as a triple goddess, consisting of the maiden, the mother, and the crone. And the moon, or the moon goddess, represented feminine power. That power was considered to be hidden and receptive. And her ability to receive and reflect light from the sun controlled the tides, water, plant growth. In essence, she controls creation, the ability to create. And with human beings, characteristics come from our own moon, come out in the dark or night or when we're stressed out or triggered. So in order to access the power of our own creation, we need to be able to access the shadow or hidden aspects of ourselves. So does that make sense so far?
Yeah, definitely. It makes sense that in order to grow, we need to take a look at the foundation and where we've been to determine where we're going.
Excellent. Perfect. So in astrology, the moon represents essentially the storehouse that holds all the feelings and emotions from all the experiences we've ever had. Picture it as a vast ocean consisting of your feelings, emotions, moods, dependency, insecurity, how you instinctively feel about yourself. The moon is important from a karmic or past life perspective because it shows us what we need to resolve emotionally to become our best self. So it's through the emotional or the feelings body that we're able to grow in this, essentially grow in this lifetime. So when I look at your moon in Virgo 7th house, I was able to see that this eclipse occurred, it's called in conjunction, right on top of your moon. Right on top of it, okay? You had this eclipse basically saying, wake up, look at this, look at your emotional nature. This next 6 months is about your emotional growth. So, you know, when I look at moon in Virgo, I see that, well, essentially in its early stages, a Virgo moon, as we've talked about before, is critical and it can be difficult. And then what happens is sometimes criticism is turned inward, causing your own inner tension, nervousness, and a feeling of not being enough. And it's all playing out in your 7th house, and that's the stage that we call relationships that are meaningful, okay, contractual relationships, including the relationship you have with yourself. I will add, and I did want to forget to mention this, that if you are feeling tense, for you Virgos out there, the easiest way to relax is to go outside and let nature ground you. But that's not necessarily what this is about right now. Right now we're talking about a moon that is activated and it wants to be recognized and created and woken up to its creative potential. So every time you feel like, if you felt emotionally stressed or uncomfortable over, you know, for the last week or 2 weeks, there's a good reason for this. It's that the moon itself is the sole ruler of Virgo. Mercury is the personality ruler, but moon is the sole ruler. And what that means is that there's a higher meaning to what appears to be unconscious and out of your control. And the whole reason for the discomfort is to wake you up so you can access and accept the shadow side of you. And when you embrace your shadow, you will also accept other people's shadow as well. And the whole objective in this position is for you to be able to immediately discriminate between your own constructive thoughts versus destructive thoughts. So this is very Buddhist monkish. The Buddhists knew that the only control that existed was the control over one's own mind. And where your moon is opposite the goddess Astrea, we talked about this last time, Astrea is the goddess of justice or just mind, right? We talked about how you very much identify with justice and just-mindedness. So this is all very auspicious, and it's great for you to, when you're thinking about what's going on with you emotionally over the next month, these are things that you can tune into and bring into your conscious awareness. That this is very much about a balance between what you're feeling and what's getting triggered and balancing your own mind. Now, the lunar eclipse, like I said, brought this to a whole new level, and you're going to be seeing this over the next month, maybe even for 6 months. It's going to be popping in here and there until the next lunar eclipse is in the opposite side of the chart. So it's going to show up in Aquarius. Now, okay, so what you can do over the next month is frequently meditate that you are planting a seed that you will intentionally grow and build your ability to observe your thoughts. While you're doing work with Roger and Margie, allow yourself to embrace your shadow characteristics, or what you believe to be shadow characteristics. I want you to remember that each one of us has shadow characteristics, and that authentic power and creation comes from bringing them up to the light. So observe or see your own mind observing the shadow aspects without judgment upon yourself, but seeing them as the goddess Estrella, who can make choices. Okay, so instead of just feeling them and feeling victim to them, it's all about bringing it, all your feelings, shadow and otherwise, up to the light. And once they're all up into the light, you can make really great choices. Let me check in. How are you doing with this so far?
I think it makes a lot of sense. When I'm thinking about the shadow aspects that you're talking about, I'm particularly drawn to my shadow aspects of anxiety and OCD. And a lot of the time, that's a huge player in the way that I externalize feelings of safety or calm or love, even to a certain extent. And
right.
So I try to change or control my external circumstances, and so it really resonates with me that it's really about changing or controlling my own thoughts and my own sense of self-safety and love to the point where, like, because, I mean, so I'm kind of relating it to an anxiety attack, for example.
Mm-hmm.
Like, whether I'm in a situation that I'm uncomfortable with or not, like, leaving the situation isn't what changes or should be changing whether I'm anxious or not. It's developing a stronger foundation of connection to my breath and being able to calm myself down through controlling my thoughts and my breath and my mind-body connection rather than where I am or who I'm with or who's doing what.
Exactly. And by developing positive, by seeing your anxiety and not judging it, mm-hmm. That frees up some anxiety, okay? Because you don't need to be anxious over being anxious, right? That just compounds it.
Definitely.
And so I think that's good. And so when you're feeling that anxiety and you're breathing and you're realizing, and we're going to get into some more tools that you can use. So I'm just going to jump right into that because the moon orbits around the Earth. Okay, so we have the moon in your chart, and then we have two positions in your chart we call the nodes, the north and south nodes of the moon. And those points are not, they're essentially points of intersection that where the path of the moon crosses the path of the sun, called the ecliptic. So where they cross each other, we have 2 points we call the north node and a south node. And they are 180 degrees apart, so they create an axis of energy. One side, the south node, represents qualities that come naturally to you. You've worked with them a lot. They might be overdeveloped, and these are characteristics. Everybody tends to fall back on their south node characteristics. Astrologers essentially say that they're karmic, that we perfected them in a previous life. Now, the North Node are those that we're meant to develop in this lifetime, so we balance that axis. Because you know in astrology, imbalances are essentially problems. So how we handle an imbalance is we strengthen the characteristics of the North Node, and by doing that, we create balance and happiness and fulfillment and essentially spiritual growth. So what I noticed was that, again, your solar eclipse and your personal month starting on the 28th is waking up your nodes to be worked with. So your South Node or overdeveloped side has to do with using energies of Leo in the area of your life that has to do with important relationships, so your 7th house. So when it comes to relationships, you are a very giving, loving, warm person. You find happiness being in relationships to those people who are important to you. You're romantic, creative, expressive, but it also suggests that there might be issues surrounding one-on-one relationships. There might be issues of codependency or indecisiveness, or maybe some melodrama over things that happen in relationships. Leo could also be willful. You know, you're overly focused on what you want. And sometimes Leo can need to feel special. Now, these are just some examples of what can happen when Leo is overdeveloped. So in order to take this opportunity to the max, you want to develop a healthy balance with the opposite side, which is Aquarius. And this is happening in the 1st house or your own unique identity. So I'm going to just list some things about Aquarius that you can put into your, awareness, your consciousness for the upcoming months, and try to balance out some Leo energy with things like not taking things so personally. That's very Aquarius. Aquarians allow themselves to detach enough from a situation in order to gain a higher perspective, so you can see the bigger picture. They actually do that. Aquarians have this ability to detach enough as if there's a part of their mind that's able to look down on the situation more objectively. And you can develop that if you choose. You can let go of any fear in relationships by offering freedom to your loved ones to be who they are, just like you want that freedom for yourself. So that's a great thing to do. Just relax and allow people to follow their own formula. You can love yourself by trusting yourself to follow your own impulses. This is the 1st house, and lead without fear. You don't need other people to validate what you inherently know to be authentically true for you and to lead. You can do that. And the last thing that Aquarius will do is to remember that you are still unique and special even in a crowd. We are all equal and special within the greater community of humanity. And use that Leo warm charm when you communicate to other people to show others how special they are as well. Now, if you develop and when you develop a little bit more emphasis on Aquarius, what you're going to find is that you feel happy. It feels like you're in the flow. So, over the next 2 weeks especially, because that's when I see this, over the next 2 weeks, these nodes really being activated, just try to bring both sets of characteristics more fully into your awareness. Again, don't judge anything. Just imagine and intend for yourself opportunities where you can use more Aquarian characteristics. and this will automatically balance out any overuse of those Leo ones. So just checking in with you, how do you feel about balancing these characteristics of your personality?
I think it makes a lot of sense, and it's particularly heightened right now. Even just like over the eclipse with all the emotional intensity, it really was a mix of like indecisiveness and a lack of accepting other people as they are. I really have a proclivity to control situations, and so I think that like by integrating more of the Aquarian characteristics, like not taking everything so personally or detaching from the situation to look at it from a more realistic point of view, because I was even talking to Margie about this over the weekend, and sometimes I just get so like into a certain situation that it seems a lot more magnified than it really is.
Mm-hmm. Yep, and that's the drama, and that's the trick, is to sort of imagine. I think it was Eckhart Tolle in one of his books that talked about that ability to be able to remove yourself just enough where you're not so involved emotionally, where you can just distance it enough to say, let me look at the bigger picture. And you actually have that in your chart. I'm seeing it right now. You have Pluto. I think I remember in Scorpio, and I remember telling you about that Scorpion energy that is really intense. The Scorpion tails go up. They're ready to fight to the death until eventually they say, this is just so uncomfortable. What is wrong with that other Scorpion? Why do they want to fight me so much? And then they become the eagle, which flies overhead with the intention to see what's going on. What is this situation really? And once they do that, they now know what they didn't know before, and they can never be the same, so they transform. That, hence the phoenix, the third part. So this is the energy that you have. You have Pluto, ruler of Scorpio, right up on your midheaven. And if you set your intention to do this, and again, none of this is with judgment. This is a game. This is play. We are all creationary beings. And what your mind can dream of, you can achieve. And so I bring all these energies up. Hopefully you can hear this again at some point, listen to this, and jot down some notes and imagine this happening. Create this in your life and work with your meditations and just allow this emotional growth to take place, because this is what this eclipse is telling you. It's going to give you the magic if you do a little bit of the work. So the last intense emotional energy I want to talk about is Pluto. And again, I just said Pluto is, in your Scorpio, up on your midheaven. And Pluto is the planet associated with transformation. And right now, Pluto transit is just waking up your Capricorn. And let me tell you, Capricorn is that goat that is very goal-oriented, and a key word for Capricorn is needing to control. So Pluto is going through Capricorn in your 12th house, which is very much the house of, what I call like things that are behind the scenes or hidden in the midst. So that creates anxiety. So it's no wonder that you're feeling this control being triggered and anxiety being triggered, because Pluto is this very slow-moving planet, and its effects are deep and transformative. Now, again, I'm going to say this is a gift for you. This is all about stirring things up, because Pluto controls the deepest undercurrents of the psyche and the impressions that are made from strong emotions. So just remember, as a child, we do what we need to process intense situations, especially ones that involve things like trauma, shame, or hatred. We just do whatever we need to get by. And as we get older, those repressed feelings can create a twisted but definitely not accurate self-image. Okay, they're just tools that we used when we were kids. They got imprinted, they're patterned and programmed, as Roger says, and then we turn these inaccurate feelings and self-image into facts when they're really not facts. And so Pluto transit right now is going across your Capricorn, 12th house, 4 planets, really, 4 planets, Uranus, Neptune, Saturn, and Venus. So, wow. And it is impacting you emotionally. It started in 2009, and it's going to go right through 2024. And it basically, so what is this? It means that you're finishing up one cycle and beginning a next. That's the way I would look at it. I would break this part of your life up into pre-Pluto and after Pluto. You get to decide who you're going to be. Are you going to undo those repressed feelings by bringing them up and looking at them in their entirety and for if they're factual or not, and merge with them and then say, thank you for letting me survive as a little kid, but I'm an adult now, and I'm transforming into the person, the new adult. You know, that's essentially what has to happen. So again, these feelings about a sense of self-worth or being tied, anything that is tied to accomplishing something, you know, control of anything, these are the ones that are being triggered. And because it's in the 12th house, a lot of times you're going to be feeling things and you won't even know how to express it. You know, you might not even be able to accurately describe what you're feeling. I do know this much: you are very vulnerable right now to being hurt. Like do you feel like there are times when you just want to be a detective on yourself and say, what the heck is going on inside you, Ursula? Like, do you want to be a deep sea soul diver right now at times?
Yeah, I'm definitely interested in like learning more about how different subconscious emotions impact the way that I feel about myself or the world around me. And even just hearing you talk about the different impacts that not only survival skills, but sometimes some of the patterns seem to be reemerging from when I was a kid, and and so I mean, I guess that would be an opportunity to use a different type of coping mechanism. But there's just been a lot of I mean, I grew up in a household where there was a lot of expectation, and so, I mean, it seems more clear to me now that that can turn into internal criticism when those expectations are or aren't met. Like, in order to meet them, I became more self-critical and judgmental of myself. And then when we did our the soul chart reading for me a couple months ago,
right,
you had even mentioned that, like, especially through the Capricorn aspect of me, that I not only hold myself but other people to those standards.
Correct.
I think that also loops back around to what you were saying about the opportunities to let people just be who they are. And I can see, like, even over the weekend with certain issues of control in different relationships, that, like, there was also just like a lot of high intensity emotion and like bickering and stuff like that. And then I internalized that, like, oh, because I'm not being good enough at X, Y, or Z. And so it's interesting that it kind of all comes together.
Right. So that, and that last part, that is again self-judgment, that I'm saying you need to waken that inner Astraya, the goddess of the scales of justice, and which, or just mind, right? Having an accurate, a mind that can weigh things accurately. And you said, okay, I need to choose new coping mechanisms. First of all, what I want to say is you need to feel all the feelings that come up. You can't build walls around your emotions. That's not the way to achieve growth. Definitely don't build walls, don't resist. Allow the flow of emotions to come up. At that point, try to bring in a little Aquarian objectivity and observe the thoughts that are going through your mind. All those self-critical thoughts that are going through your mind. Bring out your Astraya and say, does this really make sense? I mean, I understand that thought has probably gone through my mind 150 times or 150,000 times, but is it really an accurate thought? At that point, once you realize and love yourself that you gave yourself that thought for a reason a long time ago. There was a protectionary mechanism that your mind needed to put there to protect yourself. As crazy as that sounds, it's what was brought up in childhood. And once you bring that child up of you, the little Ursula in your mind, that said, isn't that amazing? She did what she needed to do, all right? She created whatever coping mechanisms or whatever thought processes in her mind that she needed to make, but now I can make different choices. I can breathe, allow myself to use this investigative process, know that I'm safe. I'm not a kid anymore. I can create, right? The moon is the creator, and I can create anything from these emotions that I want. If I want to keep going with the same thoughts and keep creating the same situation, I can, or I can change them. And so, because this is the ending of one cycle, this Pluto going through your 12th house, ending in one cycle, building, ready for you to start a new future, ask yourself in meditation, without having to come up with the answer right now, but ask how you can synthesize your past with a creative new future. You're looking for the bridge. You're looking for the tools to bring up and embrace completely your past, no judgment, but know that there's a bridge you're making right now to your future. So I'm going to just complete this reading with the key dates of what's going on. On August 28th at 12:23 p.m. is when you start this new cycle. The energies that we just talked about are building in intensity up to the time of your full moon on September 11th at 10:30 a.m. Now, a full moon is where there's full illumination and heightened awareness and clarity about yourself and all of these aspects we just talked about, if you choose to work with them. And then for the next 2 weeks after that full moon, you'll be releasing and resolving any challenges from these energies until your next new moon on September 24th. So there can be some, of course, I would expect there to be some carryover into the next month with these, because this is some really powerful work that you'd be doing. But this was such a large body of work. I couldn't resist saying, Ursula, this is some good juice to work with for this next month, all started by the solar eclipse. And if you do the bulk of the work, you know, or the meditating and allowing and releasing and loving, self-loving, I just see you floating through the months after that with so much more ease.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, because not only are these tools that are helpful for issues that are prominent now, but to build that foundation for the future as well.
Correct. So that's a wrap.
That was so great. It's every time that we do this, I'm just astounded by it's really what's going on in my life. And
it's synchronistic, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is. And it's inspiring too, because I feel like since these aren't issues that I've talked to you about and you're able to hone in on them, it just develops this like stronger trust in the universe.
Exactly. The universe knows what you need for growth. It wants us all to grow. And yet we have free will. We don't have to. We can stay stubborn and fixed. But it's always giving us the gift of opportunity. And the more conscious, what I love about astrology is the more conscious we become of these opportunities, it just gives us a more heightened awareness of jumping on board and saying, yeah, let me play in this for a bit. Let's have a little fun with this. I really want to grow with this. And it just makes life easier.
I'm gonna say a little line. What we resist persists.
Mm-hmm.
So when we try to control things or do things, and Roger, please jump in at any time. They push against us. So when we become the observer, even in our own lives or interaction with other people, it loosens up that tie and gives us the freedom to move more fluidly through any situation. Roger, do you have anything to say?
Exactly, including fears, which are a lot of our issues.
Yeah.
Especially when you're talking about the anxiety and OCD. Bigger picture, that's a perfect place to move through life from, because you can move through so many of those things, feel the emotion, whatever, and just keep going forward. It's so important. That's why I was glad Andrea brought up bringing in, working with the Aquarian energies also. And Tuesday, our next session is Grace Recovery, which is a practice to return to our original state of oneness with connection with our source through our heart center, and that can be a game changer for seeing things from the bigger picture.
Bigger picture.
Very good. You're going to be busy, Ursula.
It's exciting. It's exciting.
I was thinking maybe a good, in a couple of weeks or so, we could all connect together and have a session and just discuss how you're working through things, and possibly how you could apply some of the energy work, and Andrea bring up some more suggestions from her side to help you through it all.
That sounds great.
Well, Andrea, lovely to talk to you, and thank you so much for your insight and all the beautiful work you do. And Roger, thanks for taking time out of your little mini vacay to step in with us and chat.
I love doing this.
Thank
you all.
Ursula, thank you for having the courage and strength to come in and share and allow us to all work together with you.
Yes, thank you, Ursula.
Yeah, thank you all so much for guiding me on this healing journey. It's really been an amazing experience.
Perfect.
All right. Much love to all of you.
Thank you.
Everybody.
Bye. Bye.